Well, on today's Signature Style Saturday, we have so much to talk about, starting with the number one most important design principle or thing that you can do to really give your front landscape curb appeal and a wow factor. I think it makes it look more sophisticated, and we are going to talk about that. If you don't do anything else, you want to do this. Number two, I'm going to talk about what I have found where. I've got a fun thing one, thing two. I'm going to give you a little idea of what my favorite tool of the week is. We're going to talk about redbud trees. Well, what do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, this garden design principle is especially valuable when you're looking at a landscape from a distance, i.e. curb appeal, but it becomes even more important, I think, as you approach your front yard or any garden in general. And what is that secret to a really good, sophisticated, attractive, attention-grabbing landscape? And that is unity and cohesion. And there's a number of different ways that you can really attain unity and cohesion to make it just more harmonious with your home, with the totality of your landscape, and really with your own signature styles. It is just great garden design. So, what are the ways that you too, if you are a new gardener, if you are revamping your current garden, if you're a new homeowner, here are some of the ways that you can really exaggerate the principle of unity, cohesion, and harmony in your garden. I'll show you what I mean. Well, today's video is sponsored by Jones Road Beauty. You know, I came to this line of beauty products, I guess, kind of late to the game, especially this What the Foundation. But after I put up the last video of me putting it on, I got so many comments from you viewers that you apparently were a little bit more on the ball than I was, because you have been using it for quite a while. And you're very familiar with just how moisturizing it is, how easily it goes on, how kind of transparent it is, translucent. It kind of gives you this subtle glow. In fact, when I put it on, I'll put my sunscreen on, but then I don't use any other kind of moisturizer underneath it, because it almost feels like I'm putting on moisturizer. And it just gives me that little hint, that little tint of color that I want, covering up any kind of redness from my rosacea or any other kind of blotches I might have from the sun. It doesn't fall into my fine wrinkles, fine lines and wrinkles. I also especially love it because it's moisturizing. If I've got a little bit, if my skin is a little bit flaky, it really seems to handle that very well. And it almost makes my skin look well, let's just say it really reduces the size of your pores. I love it. And I love the fragrance of it. Now, I put it on with my fingers. You could use a brush. You could probably use a sponge, but I like just the simple feel of it. Again, it's so silky, it glides. You can see it just glides right on. So if you guys want to also experience What the Foundation with Jones Road Beauty, then just go to jonesroadbeauty.com/Linda. And if you spend $85, you will also get a mini version of their mascara, which I also absolutely love. Or you can just use the little QR code that's right here on the screen. What the Foundation? Well, it's what it's all about in my book. Okay, one thing that I think you will notice about my own landscape, whether you think it's overplanted or it's not, definitely you can tell that even though it is asymmetrical, there's a certain rhyme and reason to the totality of the landscape. And that's because I have used a rhythm and repetition of plants and plant form and shape all across the landscape. And for me, that shape is pronouncedly kind of a rounded, mounded form using, gosh, mostly boxwood, but also sunshine ligustrum, small hollies, arborvitae, but it's the form itself that is continuous throughout the landscape. And that makes it look more harmonious. And if both sides of the front yard on the upper terrace, both sides speak the same language. They both have those same forms. Now, not only is that globular rounded mounded form repeated, but so is this conical shape. So the conical shape is repeated and it punctuates the different four corners of the upper terrace, but it is definitely a form that is also repeated throughout in key locations, including even my window box. So that is one way that you can really get unity and cohesion, and that's by repeating an element, in this case a form, a rounded mounded form, throughout your landscape. In some cases, that form, and Stuart right here, let's try to put up an example. In some landscapes, let's say you've got one that's, it's more native, it is more of a prairie type garden. In some cases, that shape might be tall and strappy in the way of grasses, and then it's punctuated by different kinds of fluffier rounded forms. But nevertheless, those forms are going to be repeated across the landscape. There's a wonderful example of this in my neighborhood. It's a corner lot. They have much more of a prairie style garden, but you will notice there too that those forms, the grasses, the type of plant materials are repeated over and over again. Now, it doesn't mean you have a completely homogeneous landscape with nothing in it but say a boxwood hedge a la the 70s or just grasses. It doesn't mean that there's not variety, but it does mean that you capture certain elements and you repeat them rhythmically and in harmony across the space. So not only is the form repeated throughout the plantings in ground, but it's also repeated even in the planters and my container gardens. I use a lot of topiary, and most of the topiary repeats that form. And again, it just looks like it kind of just all speaks the same language. If I had nothing but this form, would it be boring? Yes, it might be kind of boring, but therein lies the brilliance. This form is repeated over and over again, but it's contrasted nicely with things that have a different shape and a different form. So I've got looser spireas here, which will bloom out pretty quickly. Not only will they have a leaf texture that is different than the boxwood, but they will also have a less glossy, more matte finish. So there'll be some nice contrast there. And then here's a really exaggerated form of a contrast, and that's with this Jane Star Magnolia. So I've got all of those rounded mounded shapes to ground the design in repetition, and then it just enhances the beauty of the other things. So the form is repeated. I've said that ad nauseum, but the other thing that's being repeated concurrently is a certain type of plant material. In my case, it's not only boxwood, but it's also things like abelias. It's a repetition of some specimen plantings like these large roses. It's even the rhythm and repetition of these redbuds. I think they're absolutely beautiful. Right, yeah. And it creates this just almost like a ribbon of purple across the front yard. The other thing that makes it unified and cohesion is color, and this is a perfect example of that. So this color in the redbud is almost perfectly echoed by the color in the magnolia. Yep. And so it unifies both spaces and it makes it look intentional. Now, we'll talk about the use of seasonal color and annual color and how that effect can also help improve, increase, and enhance this cohesive harmony going on in your front yard. Well, a lot of times I get this question, hey Linda, what's the difference between an eastern redbud and an Oklahoma redbud? Well, an Oklahoma redbud is a cultivar of the eastern redbuds that you see right here. They are native to Oklahoma, primarily in the eastern parts of the state. They tend to grow taller, more loosely, and they also have kind of a paler color in the springtime than the Oklahoma redbud, which is a little bit shorter. It's a little bit more compact, and the intensity of the bloom in the spring and also the intensity of the foliage itself, those very distinctive heart-shaped leaves, that is also more intense. I kind of like the looser form because over time, I am hoping that, like at my other house, Stuart, maybe we can put a picture here, where in the springtime, they all kind of grew together and created this ceiling of pink in the spring. Over time, I want that same thing to happen here, and I think it will with some very careful pruning and elevating the canopy of it over time. I think it'll be really beautiful. But if you want one that is more drought tolerant, that grows more compactly, and that is maybe a little sturdier, then you want the Oklahoma redbud, which hails more from the Texas area, a Texas variety, and it tends to be just a little bit maybe more dramatic, but I think not as naturally beautiful. There's no wrong answer. No wrong answer. It's just which one really appeals to you. My heart typically is with the eastern redbud, which, by the way, the petals are edible. I learned that when I was doing some research for my book, The Elegant and Edible Garden, and I think they are just gorgeous. There are.
Did we eat them that day we ate all those plants?
I think we did. They're a great multitasker, because if you want to force the blooms or cut some of these branches to bring inside, absolutely gorgeous, would look beautiful in a bouquet with that Jane Star magnolia. But then obviously there's just nothing that could be more beautiful in your spring garden. The other reason I like them is I think they tend to hold their flowers a little bit longer than most other blooming trees in the spring, even in the case of high winds, which we have really been experiencing in spades lately. Well, here you go. Here is my gardening outfit of the day from top to bottom. My sunglasses, kind of aviator looking. I got these online. I will definitely put a link below because it is sunglass season.
Yes.
My earrings I got, I don't know where. I've had these forever and ever. My top is universal thread. I think is that Target? I think it's Target.
That's right, yeah.
I believe I got it thrifted, but at any rate, I got it universal thread. My ice pack on my back. Isn't this nice? I don't know, Stuart, what brand is it?
It says cold compress, something therapy.
I don't know, but we will put a link to this one. I like it because it's got.
You like it because it feels good.
I like it because it feels good and because I can walk around doing it. Yes, I was pruning something this morning and I didn't stretch, and stupid me. But at any rate, it is a good ice pack. My belt is a hand-me-down from my boys. It's one of my favorite belts. They gave it to me. My breeches I think I got online, but I've had them for so many years that I don't know from whence they came. And they've got great roomy pockets, by the way, you guys. See, I've got my phone in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're great to work out in the garden, and they wash up nicely. But most importantly, they're kind of loose. And then, boy, we haven't talked about my high C boots for a while, and I am a girl that loves her high C boots. In fact, Stuart, I think we need to do a Linda Vater Live on April 6th. And on April 6th, we will do a giveaway of a pair of high C boots, I think, to one of our members. So I think that would be a great reason for you.
Idea.
Yeah, a great reason to become a member. And I think it'll be fun too, because we all need a new pair of gardening boots at the beginning of the season. And there you go. There is my outfit of the day, ice pack and all. And here is my tool of the week. I'm going to start sharing this with you guys because so many of these, well, let's just say that if a tool is recommended by a good friend and an experienced gardener, then I want to know about it. And so I want to share this with you today. You guys know I love the Barnell pruners, but they're even more expensive than these, and sometimes they can be hard to find. These are Akasune, Japanese made long bladed loppers or long bladed shears, and these are absolutely wonderful, especially if you have just had them sharpened like I did this past week. And they just can really make short work of pruning any of your topiaries, whether they are in the ground or in pots like this. And it's just very pleasant work. Now, there is some discussion I've noticed on my channel and other places that when you are pruning, is your default to hold them up like this? Or is your default to hold them like that so it kind of mimics the curvature of the roundness of the ball? I kind of swing both ways. So sometimes I'll use them one way and sometimes I'll use them another. In either case, they're absolutely wonderful. Now, the other tool that I recommend is their companion hand pruners. I also love their hand pruners. They're also a favorite of Martha Stewart's, I read somewhere, because they just do such a good job. Now you'll notice that I'm not bending too much, because I think my back's going to be fine today, but I don't want to do anything foolish right now and be more foolish than I was this morning, because like an eager kid, I got outside. 99% of the time I remember to stretch in the morning, but I was so eager to get out here and start working today that I didn't do my stretches, and now I am paying for it. So tip, big tip.
Big tip.
It only takes once, especially if you're in heavy pruning season, where you can hurt your back. So I'm going to finish this, but I did want to give you that recommendation of both the pruners. Stuart, let's put a picture of the hand pruners up here. Yeah, you can put a link to them because they're both just wonderful, and there'll either be a link on the screen or a link in the description box. Well, speaking of Martha Stewart, I got her new book, the Martha Stewart Garden Handbook. This is a little bit different from her, well, it's a lot bit different, I guess, from her previous gardening book, which I kind of cut my teeth on. But it's just a really wonderful, wonderful basic gardening book that shows you all of the different skills that you need, gives really valuable information. I love the color. I just think it's really, really beautiful, and I just think it's a great idea, especially a good gift for a new gardener who is just starting out. Both of her books would be, and actually so would my book, particularly if you are interested in gardening design like we're talking about today. But we'll put a link below. I think this is kind of what I'm reading right now. Another book that I am reading right now is Run, Rabbit, Run by John Updike. It is a Pulitzer Prize winner. I may have been reading it when we last talked. I can't remember. But I'm working out in the garden more these days than I am reading. So there you go. That's what I'm reading and looking at today. Now, I alluded earlier to another technique to make your yard look really cohesive and unified is the use of color. And it's not just the use of color in seasonal color, which I'll address momentarily, but also the use of color in the foliage of all of the different kinds of shrubs that you use that have different textural interest. So the beauty of all of the different nandinas that have their own distinct color is also repeated in the orange rocket barberry here. And not only is it repeated from one plant to another, but it's repeated up and down the length of a space. So it makes the whole area look unified from the south to the north, but it also makes it more unified through the use of foliar color from the east to the west, because some of these same plants are used on the other side and the colors are also repeated. And then obviously it's all about green, so that rhythm and repetition of the green, the glossy green in shape and in form, is repeated all up and down the wall and in other locations of the garden. And then also the use of gold is repeated in the foliage of the abelia, in the touch of gold hollies, and in different types of plants that I have moving from east to west. So we've got it here. You can see it repeated up on the hill. And the combination and the movement, the visual movement in placement of these different plants really kind of brings it all together. When we come back, let's talk about the use of seasonal color, i.e. the annuals and things that we plant to really look spectacular for each individual season. Okay, and here is another product I use bags and bags of this time of year for both my lawn and some of my garden beds, and that is this Milorganite. You can get this, I think you can, let's look, Stuart, provide a link that you can either Lowe's or Home Depot or someplace like that, maybe Ace Hardware, but it gives you all of the information you need on the back. So you can, all of the different applications that you can use it for. Okay, and look at that cute little picture there. That's a reason to buy the bag alone. But it gives you directions and instructions. It is inexpensive and it works great. Okay, I'm a girl who wants a color palette that is, at least for this season, a little bit more English in flavor, so I'm using blues and whites and pinks and things. The color palette for my spring show starts out, however, all in blue and white. Some might call this purple, but it's all in blues and whites and gradations of those same colors. So you can see that in the pansies and the violas, and even in the Vidal tulips that are starting to come out and starting to bloom, albeit slowly. And as Stuart moves through the landscape, you can see that it is, again, a repetition and a rhythm and ribbon of color that continues along one edge of the border. It then continues on top of the terrace. It continues down these berms, which, by the way, also have a roundish shape that echoes and unifies and repeats the shape of all of the globular plant forms I have. It is repeated in the planters. And as you go up and along the walkway, it is repeated in the same plants here, but also then in different flowering bulbs and different cascading annuals that I've got in the various planters. Now, you might say, but Linda, I like a lot more color than that. I'm somebody that likes to play with every crayon in my color book, and that would be my question of the day for you. Are you somebody that likes a really tight color palette, or are you somebody that really likes profuse color? You can do either thing. Can you hear this? Can you hear that? Yeah, I'm still picking up trash everywhere that is blown into the landscape. You can use every crayon in your color palette. Just make sure that whole explosion of color is repeated everywhere. So let's say you've got 5 colors in a block. Just make sure that those 5 colors in those blocks are repeated in the same areas, say, where I've got the purple pansies and the purple violas. That way you can use an explosion of color. And Stuart, in fact, let's right here put that long view of Autumn's Edge. We've shown this same picture so many times because there's like every shade of tulip almost. Oh, yeah. But every shade of tulip is repeated. In other words, that blend is repeated all up and down that entire expanse. So the difference would be Do you have those blocks of color repeated continuously, or do you have like yellow, purple, red, green, and they're all in different locations? Yes, Stuart, you have a question.
Well, they might wonder, and I guess I wonder, you're planting these in a randomness in the hole you're planting them in, right? The colors aren't in any way organized in any way.
They're in a random pattern for that first block.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But then you're repeating that pattern in blocks up and down, say, the border.
Well, and I know we're mixing all the bulbs and then putting the bulbs in there. That's
right.
Yeah.
But if you're using like 5, and you see this typically in park settings, in commercial settings, in larger industrial settings, and they will have just a whole bunch of different colors, say in one flower bed or in one tree well. But if you examine it closely, there is a formula. And they will have plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, plant 4, plant 5. And then they'll do it again. Plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, plant 4, plant 5. And that formula is repeated across the space. So that's how you can use lots of color, but have it still not look too kind of Disney-esque. You're not sure where your eye should fall, but it makes sense, and it's a language you can read by the judicious placement and use of whatever colors you use. Okay, now Stuart just made a good point, and that is you can play with all of that color, but the color is, and those brush strokes of color are nothing if they don't have a beautiful canvas of green or some kind of evergreen or very dense color palette behind them. So yeah, you can use all of those colors, but make sure that you've got a beautiful canvas upon which they can play. Okay, so now here is what I found where. And by the way, this is where you guys jump in. What are you finding at your different nurseries and garden centers right now? So yesterday I went to 3 different locations, and at one of the locations, the Lowe's out on Memorial, I finally found some of this moss I was looking for. And it's beautiful. It won't last long, but it's perfect for spring, and it's perfect for Easter baskets. And probably it will also be a thing 1, thing 2, because this thing 1 right here and these blue hyacinths have been blown to bits. I will take all of these and I'll plant them in the border on Lemon Lane, where you can see that repeat of purple, another example, that repeat of purple up and down that pathway. And then I will replace this in the basket, probably with some other pansies, violas, etc., that repeat this color. Now, what's interesting and what's so fun, I think, or at least I think it is, about my garden is to view it over time, because it changes just very, very rapidly. And right now it's going to be all in purples and whites, but in short order, all of those other sorbet pinks, apricots, all of those other beautiful, more feminine tones, they are going to join the party, and then the entire tableau will change. And while we're talking about change, Stuart, let's give everybody a reminder of the tip that we're going to share when we come back out. So here you go. Here is that reminder that if you want to take a section of your garden and see how it transforms and grows over time, then definitely this is what you want to do. We did it a couple of weeks ago, I think, wasn't it, Stuart?
Yeah.
And we're doing it again now. We'll do it again in another couple of weeks, and we'll definitely be able to show how an area changes over time, and it just so beautifully conveys how miraculous Mother Nature is, how things that were once brown and dead transform beautifully into something that is just exploding with color and green and texture and growth and pollinators. Well, it's just a really, really fun thing. Let's go to the backyard, because I want to show you something else I found. And speaking of color, oh, and speaking of Cool Jobs gloves, we need to give away some gloves too. Cool Jobs, my favorite gloves to work out in the garden. Something I found at TLC. This is, by the way, is my very favorite color of geranium. And it's a little bit hard to find. I don't know why, because it's probably the most classic geranium red there is. But I bought 3 pots of these yesterday at TLC, and this will be the color inspiration for my backyard garden. You guys know I like more reds and oranges and golds back here. The other thing that I found at Lowe's was they've already started to put some of their things on half price as they get in new inventory. So in their clearance aisle in the back, you definitely want to start checking that out. Something else that I saw that you have been asking me, have I seen butterfly candy yet anywhere? And yes, I have. I saw it at both of my Lowe's, where I also saw, and I saw Better Boxwood at Home Depot. I saw that moss at Lowe's. What else did I see there? Oh, their vegetables and their herbs looked a lot better at the one on Memorial than at the Lowe's on Memorial than they did at the Lowe's on May Avenue. I know this may not mean anything to those of you who live out of state, but this is the kind of information I want you to put in the comments, because then other people in your area can save time and money by going where you tell them to go, what you have seen where. Let's say, I'm trying to think some of the other kind of unusual things. Oh, they had lavender topiary and they had rosemary topiary at TLC. They had absolutely gorgeous boxwood topiaries at TLC. I really haven't been to Home Depot much. I still haven't been to Bricks. Stuart, we might need to go to Bricks tomorrow. And I'm just starting to make the rounds, you guys. But in case you're in the Oklahoma City area and you're kind of looking for things, then definitely this is the place. These are the places you want to go to if you are looking for the same things that I am. Well, I had so hoped that the next time I showed you the backyard, everything would be in place, but it was still pretty windy yesterday, and I've got a lot of work to do, but it will be happy work. It'll be happy labor, and just please forget kind of the chaos. So a number of you asked about Linda. I thought you had a wooden tabletop made for your glass tabletop. And why is it glass again? That's because I simply had not put the wooden top on top of the glass yet. And today Stuart and Hubs put this on for me, and we actually can have the umbrella up. I will give it probably another coat of polyurethane or something to protect it, and then it'll be good to go for the summer. Another example of, since it's the theme for today, another example of cohesion and unity and harmony and repeating the same elements across the space is the fact that whenever possible, I use this color of gray. And if you want to know what the Vater cottage gray is, then you can just go to our website. Stuart, let's put a link below. In fact, you can go to our website, lindavater.com, for all sorts of information, and we will share that with you. But by repeating and painting my planter boxes the same color as the fence, that and the same color as the trim of my house, that tends to unify everything and make it look as if it's not an add-on, but actually was here and part of the original design from the very beginning. Plus, I just think it looks beautiful, and I love tone on tone. Something else that kind of unifies the space is the lattice enhancement. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, if you are, welcome. But if you're new to the channel, you may not know that when we moved in,
I've got a shot of this too.
Yeah, Stuart, let's put that there. The existing fence line only went up to the point where the trellis begins. We added on as a supplement for more privacy the trellis work that wraps all around the backyard. But then in the interest of continuity and harmony, we also repeated it over here in the surround to the air conditioner, and I also put a panel up over here upon which I will grow things or hang things. This door is painted the same color, and it just kind of repeats that the whole feel of this color saturation of this cottage gray. So we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, I'm going to show you one more way that you can use different garden elements to really unify your space. Okay, so the other way that you can unify your spaces is by using the same hardscaping elements across a space. In other words, we're not introducing lava rock here. We're not introducing a certain color of flagstone. I'm not introducing a lot of really modern concrete. I am introducing elements that already existed on the house itself. So I am using a lot of old brick here. I am using gravel as a mulch, not only in these flower beds here, but I'm also using it as a mulch in some of my container gardens. I'm using it in utilitarian spaces where I am just storing equipment and things. So I am taking these same elements and I am using them in both the front and the back. So in the front, I put in a brick border. Stuart, right here, let's show a picture, a brick border of how the brick runs along the sidewalk, and it repeats not only the elements, the architectural elements of the cottage itself, but also where I have used it in the back for different soft hardscaping material, I guess. I've used it in my steps. I've tried to match the colors as best I can. And then you can see that even in the color of the pots and the painting of the back door, I've tried to stick with my same tonal colors.
Well, yeah, the window frame.
Right. And likewise, even in garden ornament, most of the garden ornaments I have are all black wrought iron. In my fixtures, in my kind of outdoor garden jewelry, in my lanterns, in my furniture, I've repeated that wrought iron look also from front to back. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it gave you some ideas of how you can make your lawn, your landscape, your gardens look more sophisticated and have a lot more visual appeal that is not only great curb appeal, but it's just very appealing when you are entertaining. And it is, I just think one thing enhances every other thing when you use this principle of unity, cohesion, and harmony in your landscape. So there we go, bad back and all stupid Linda.
No.
Thank you for hanging out with me. Make sure to check out the links below because I'm going to be sharing some of my very favorite product things and projects as we edge towards Easter.